Nobody showed up to my wedding. My whole family went to my brother's business launch. But as I walked out of the empty venue, my phone buzzed with a text from my husband telling me to smile. Right before 63 missed calls from my family lit up my screen. The music stopped before it even started. I stood at the front of the small, tastefully decorated wedding hall, staring at rows of empty white chairs. My bouquet felt heavier than bricks, my fingers trembling so badly that a rose petal slipped to the floor. The photographer, looking uncomfortable, adjusted his camera like maybe if he fidgeted enough, he could disappear. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us, where are you from, and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Should we wait a little longer? The event coordinator whispered, her eyes darting toward the giant double doors, like they might burst open any second with a flood of smiling relatives. I swallowed hard, my throat raw from pretending to smile for the last hour. We've already waited 45 minutes, I said, forcing my voice to sound steady. They're not coming. My maid of honor, Lily, my only real friend in the world, gave me a sympathetic glance and squeezed my hand. They're missing out. Forget them. You look incredible. But my chest burned. They weren't just missing out, they had chosen not to come. Every single one of them. My parents, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, even the relatives I barely knew, but who'd RSVP'd, yes, months ago. All of them were at my brother's flashy new business launch, the same event my father had been hyping up for months. I had scheduled my wedding for today months before my brother announced his grand opening. My family didn't even pretend to try to split their time. They just told me, you'll understand. It's important for him. And here I was, in a hall so quiet, the air conditioning felt like an insult. The officiant cleared his throat gently. We can still proceed? No, I said, my voice cutting through the awkward stillness. We're not doing this like this, not when it's supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Lily shot me a worried look. You're calling it off? No, I whispered, tears burning the backs of my eyes. I'm just not letting them take this from me. I picked up my phone from the table where I'd left it earlier, intending to shove it into my clutch, but the screen lit up with a single message. From Ryan, my husband-to-be. Smile. Confused, I looked around, but he wasn't in sight. Then another notification buzzed in. This time from my call log. 63 missed calls from Mom, Dad, Uncle David, Aunt Karen, home, and even my brother. The same people who couldn't bother to show up. Lily's eyes went wide. What the hell? I opened the first voicemail, my breath catching when I heard my father's panicked voice. Emily, call us back right now. You need to explain what's going on. Before I could process it, Ryan appeared in the doorway, not in a tux, but in a perfectly tailored navy suit. His jaw tight, his eyes cold. He gave me a small knowing smile, the kind that said he had already set something in motion. You ready? He asked. I stared at him, torn between dread and relief. Ready for what? For the part where they realized, he said stepping closer, that they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Ryan didn't waste a second. He took my bouquet, set it aside, and guided me out of the empty hall without looking back. Outside, the valley pulled up our car. The city air felt colder than it should have. My phone buzzed again. Mom, Dad, Jason, all calling like their lives depended on it. What's going on? I asked as Ryan drove off. He smirked faintly. Your family's launch party isn't going as planned. The bank froze their transactions. My head snapped toward him. What? Why? You remember that loan you co-signed for Jason years ago? Turns out your name is still tied to his company's assets. I just asked the bank to clarify your consent. That triggered a hold until things are cleared up. I blinked. You did this today? They chose today, he said simply. And now they're realizing you matter more than they thought. Another call lit my phone. Ryan nodded toward it. Answer on speaker. I picked up. Dad's voice came sharp. Emily, fix this. Your brother's investors are here, and the bank is holding everything. Jason's voice cut in furious. If this is about your wedding, grow up. We'll take you out to dinner later. I felt something steal inside me. You skipped my wedding. Now, you can come see me. 7 p.m., Grayson House. Apologize first. Then we'll talk about fixing your mess. Silence. Then Dad's clipped. Reluctant. Fine. Ryan's hand found mine as I ended the call. Good, he said. You're finally setting the rules. By the time we pulled up to Grayson House, the sun had already dipped low, staining the glass buildings in a pale orange glow. Ryan had chosen the venue well. Neutral, upscale, and very public. It was the kind of place where tempers stayed in check because too many important people might be watching. Inside, we booked a private glass-walled conference room. The long table gleamed under pendant lights, and the polished floor echoed our footsteps. Ryan wrote 7 p.m. on the corner of the whiteboard, underlining it once. "Punctuality matters tonight," he said. At 6:05, Lily arrived, eyes blazing with loyalty. She hugged me hard. "If they try anything, I'm staying. No one corners you alone." At 7:10, the glass door finally slid open. My parents entered first, Dad in an overly formal suit, Mom clutching her purse like it was a shield. Jason followed, his jaw tight, his phone in his hand, and behind him trailed a man in his 50s with a businesslike air. Jason's CFO. "No, one sat. Let's make this quick," Dad said, already impatient. I didn't move from my spot at the head of the table. "Before we discuss anything, I want something clear. You'll apologize for missing my wedding. Not because it's polite, but because it's the truth." Mom shifted uncomfortably. "Emily, we didn't miss it. You didn't come," I cut in. My tone was even, but it landed like a stone. Dad's jaw flexed. He glanced at Jason, then at Ryan, then back at me. "Fine, I'm sorry." Mom gave a quick nod. "Yes, we're sorry." Jason didn't speak. His silence said everything. "Good," I said. "Now, business." Ryan slid a folder across the table. "Here's the original loan guarantee Emily signed, the bank's freeze notice, and our email request for clarification." The CFO flipped through the documents, frowning. "If we settle the old obligation and provide proof to the bank, the hold will lift tomorrow." "Correct," Ryan said. "But there are 3 additional conditions." Jason's head snapped up. "Conditions?" "Yes," I said, looking directly at him. "1, you sign a statement acknowledging my name was added under pressure, and you will never use my finances without my consent again. 2, you reimburse everyone out-of-pocket cost I've covered for your ventures. 3, you send me a written apology that mentions my wedding. It stays private, but I want it." Jason scoffed. "This is blackmail. This is boundaries." Ryan said calmly, "Something your family has never respected." Dad started to argue, but the CFO cleared his throat. "Jason, she has legal grounds. And the longer this goes on, the worse it looks to investors." Jason's glare could have cut glass, but he finally said, "Fine, we'll do it." I didn't smile. I simply leaned back in my chair, feeling for the first time in years, like I wasn't the one being cornered. The agreement was signed before they left Grayson House. Ryan made sure there were 2 witnesses, Lily and the CFO, so there was no chance of them later claiming it never happened. Jason signed last, his pen jabbing the paper like each stroke was punishment. As soon as they were gone, Ryan leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. "That's step 1. Step 1. I raised an eyebrow. "You'll see." The next morning, the calls started again. Only this time, they weren't just from family. My phone was buzzing with numbers I didn't recognize. Journalists from local business pages. People wanting a statement about what happened at the launch. I ignored most of them. But curiosity finally got the better of me when Lily texted, "Turn on Channel 6. The segment was already halfway through when I flipped on the TV. The reporter stood outside my brother's gleaming new storefront, her hair whipping in the wind, talking over footage from the night before. Sources say a financial hold disrupted transactions during the grand opening, leaving customers unable to complete purchases. Several investors left early, and some vendors have expressed frustration over the delay." The camera cut to footage of Jason, looking red-faced, gesturing at a small group of investors with his hands in the air. Behind him, employees milled about awkwardly, handing out free coffee in an attempt to keep people from leaving. The caption at the bottom of the screen read, "Launch Day, Freeze, Sparks, Questions." Ryan came up behind me, coffee in hand, and smirked at the screen. "They'll spin it as a technical glitch, but the investors aren't stupid. They'll want answers, and the bank paperwork will show exactly why it happened. And my name will be right there," I murmured. "Yep," Ryan said. "Not as the villain, but as the guarantor they overlooked, the one they treated like she didn't matter." It hit me then. Not just that they'd ignored me on my wedding day, but that they'd erased me for years, even when my signature had literally kept them afloat. Before I could answer, my phone lit up again. This time, it was Jason. I let it go to voicemail, but a text followed instantly. "We need to talk now." Ryan glanced at it, then at me. "They'll want to smooth things over." Translation? They'll want you to help clean up their image without taking any of the credit. He was right. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel obligated to give them what they wanted. By noon, social media had picked up the story. People were commenting on how odd it was that none of my family had been at my wedding, thanks to a few guests who'd posted photos of the empty venue and tagged me. The posts weren't viral yet, but the narrative was forming, and it wasn't flattering for them. That evening, my parents showed up at our apartment unannounced. Ryan answered the door, but didn't invite them in. "Emily," my mother started. her tone a carefully measured blend of concern and accusation. "We need to get ahead of this. People are talking." "Let them," I said, crossing my arms. "Everything they're saying is true." Dad's jaw tightened. "This isn't good for the family name." "Then maybe the family should have shown up for mine," I said sharply. "You made your priorities clear." "Now so have I." Jason stepped forward, looking more worn down than I'd ever seen him. "Emily, please. Investors are pulling back. If you talk to them, reassure them." I cut him off. "You want me to fix this? Then admit publicly that I was there for you when you needed me, and you couldn't even show up when I needed you. Otherwise, you can clean up your own mess." The silence stretched. Ryan stood beside me, his presence solid and unshakable. Finally, Jason muttered something under his breath and turned to leave, my parents following reluctantly. When the door closed, Ryan smiled faintly. "Step 2, complete." I frowned. "And step 3, he grinned. "That's the part where they realize you're not just the person they underestimated. You're the one they can't ignore anymore." 2 weeks later, my family's polished facade had cracks deep enough for the whole city to see. It started with a quiet article in the local business journal. Buried on page 6, "Launch Day Freeze Traced to Overlooked Guarantor." It was factual, almost dry. Just a short piece explaining that my name had been on key loan documents, that the freeze had been a standard banking procedure, and that it was resolved the next day. But then, it got legs. The article was picked up by a popular regional news blog, the kind that thrived on human interest twists. They added a headline that made people click. "The sister, they forgot how a wedding snub exposed a launch day disaster." That was when the messages started pouring in. Old college friends I hadn't heard from in years, former co-workers, even distant relatives who'd never invited me anywhere suddenly remembered I existed. Half were offering support, the other half wanted the inside scoop. I ignored all of them. Instead, I focused on building something that had nothing to do with my family. Ryan and I had been talking about it for months, turning my small freelance design work into a full studio. Now with all this attention, it felt like the perfect time. We rented a corner office in a shared workspace, painted it the softest shade of cream, and put my name, Emily Gray Design, on the door. Lily helped me design the logo. Ryan handled the legal filings. I worked late into the night, not because I had to, but because it felt like mine. And then came the gala. Every year, the city's Chamber of Commerce hosted a black tie fundraiser for local entrepreneurs. Jason had been invited to showcase his launch. I hadn't planned to go, but when an invitation arrived addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Ryan Gray, I knew exactly who had pulled the strings. "You're thinking of going," Ryan said one night, watching me twirl the heavy cardstock in my hands. "I'm thinking of showing them," I said, "but not in the way they expect." On the night of the gala, I wore a sleek midnight blue gown that caught the light like water. Ryan looked devastating in a black tux. As we walked in, I could feel eyes turning, whispers starting. My parents were already there, Jason at their side, all of them wearing expressions so tight they could shatter glass. They didn't approach us. Not yet. The event moved quickly. Speeches, awards, polite applause. Then came the networking. That's when it happened. A group of investors I vaguely recognized from Jason's launch approached me, not him. "You're Emily Gray," one of them said warmly. "We've been hearing a lot about you lately." Jason was only a few feet away, watching his jaw set. "Yes," I said smiling. "I run Emily Gray Design. We specialize in branding and digital strategy." They peppered me with questions, asked for my card, and nodded approvingly when I told them about recent projects. It was subtle, but the shift was there. My name carried weight now, separate from his. Finally, my parents came over. My mother's smile was brittle. "Emily darling, you look lovely." "Thank you," I said, tone neutral. Dad cleared his throat. "We wanted to say we're proud of what you're doing." It sounded rehearsed, like a line they'd agreed on before walking over. "I appreciate that," I replied, "but I'm not doing any of it for your approval." Jason stepped forward. "Emily?" His voice was quieter now, almost careful. "I know he screwed up. I can't change that. But maybe we could work together. Your design work could." "No," I said, cutting him off gently but firmly. "You had years to see me, you didn't. And now I'm not interested in being an accessory to your success story." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Ryan slipped his hand into mine, and we walked away, leaving them standing in the middle of the glittering room, surrounded by people who had just seen the power shift. That night, as we drove home, I looked out at the city lights, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Light, unburdened. "They'll keep calling," Ryan said. "I know," I said, smiling faintly. "But now they're calling me, and I get to decide if I answer." And for once, I didn't feel like I owed them anything.